Just want to remind you guys this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Guys, be sure to hop over to prizepicks.com today. And when you do that, use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you pay your first $5 lineup.
Well, Colts fans, I thought we were going to be done having this debate. And after a couple weeks, we're still having it. And apparently, the argument just keeps getting stronger. And so now we're going to talk about this and mention why there is no controversy in Indy over the quarterback position and why Anthony Richardson will remain the future of the Indianapolis Colts. Let's talk about it. What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Derek and Cody, with you as always. Guys, like we said, the fan base of the Colts seems to be getting more and more divided every week in regards to who should be the quarterback for the remainder of the 2024 season. And the reason that I bring this up when it comes to this is because of the tweet that I'm going to show you. Now, again, I am in no way, shape, or form going to bash this person for having this debate on it. Cody and I respect this guy not only because he was a former Colt, but he obviously is a very smart guy and he understands football. He does. But I can't get on board with this take. So Darius Butler goes and tweets this after quoting a tweet from Pat McAfee earlier today and says, I don't want to overreact, but it's time to hand JoeFlaco the keys. I know he's a little long in the tooth, but he without a doubt gives our best chance to win this season. Now, again, like I said, I'm not going to sit here. We're not going to bash Darius Butler for this tweet because, again, we respect him and his opinion. He's allowed to have his opinion. But I can't get on board with it. And I'm going to explain why here in a minute. But, I mean, Cody, we're having this situation now where it's not just the trolls and it's not just the fans, like a few of the fans that are saying this. You now have, like, guys who are analysts, guys who are, like guys that were former Colts, former players saying this. And I'm struggling to understand why. So what is your thoughts on it again of the idea of JoeFlaco starting this year over Anthony Richardson?
Okay, I'll start by saying this, all right? JoeFlaco was really good really good against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, he had some fantastic throws in that game. Wasn't perfect, obviously, from really that first drive until really the fourth quarter. Colts didn't do a whole lot on offense at all. But then JoeFlaco started throwing the ball, slinging the rock a little bit. Alec Pierce and him had that connection. They were unstoppable in that fourth quarter. I mean, we can just call it what it is. Like, they were really good. But saying that, Derek, I guess it's like it depends how you view this season. And for me, I don't view this season as a season where I think, and I think you'll agree with this, I don't think playing JoeFlaco is the missing piece for you potentially winning a championship or not. Hate to break it to you, Colts fans, but I don't think this team is JoeFlaco away from being a Super Bowl contender. I just don't. I don't. Because you have a lot of issues with this team that are outside of the quarterback position that you're still trying to figure out. We just made a video talking about the cornerback room. This really the state of the past defense in general. Really the state of the defense in general is just kind of a mess right now. And I think it showed you again, Derek, on Sunday. For me, it was like you put up 34 points and you still lost. So, again, JoeFlaco looked great. Yes, on paper, Derek, right now, JoeFlaco is the better quarterback. mean, if you asked us that at the beginning of the season or when the Colts signed him, we would have said, yes, he is the better quarterback right now. But again, Derek, I guess I kind of look at it as like, I don't view this season as all in or bust. I don't view it like that. I don't believe this is a season where the Colts win. I mean, clearly their off-season moves or lack thereof indicates they don't believe they're there yet. I mean, to me, that's what it indicates. They didn't go do what Houston did, right? They didn't go out and sign multiple guys to big deals who are, pushing the age of 30. Like, they didn't do that stuff, right? They're focusing internally on building through the draft. They're focusing internally on some of their own guys. And to me, Derek, I kind of look at that and I say, this isn't a team that all of a sudden is just a good quarterback away from doing it. I just don't think they are, Derek. So I guess that's kind of how I have viewed this season. And I didn't view 2024 as the end all be all for this team and where they can be. I kind of viewed it as like, we talked about it before, the pseudo rookie season for Anthony Richardson, right? And I think the thing that's the issue, Derek, is the Colts overachieved last year. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Nobody expected the Colts to win 9 games. Nobody expected them to come within a drop pass of winning the division. Nobody expected that from the Colts last year. But now that the Colts did what they did and almost did what they did last year, the expectation is playoffs, Super Bowl, or bust. And I just think we need to calm it down a little bit, pump the brakes, and say, this isn't the year to be viewing that. Obviously, you never want to be like in a season where you don't want to win games. Everybody wants to win games. You want to feel good about where your team is. But again, Derek, like this is not what this season is about in a lot of ways. And I know we're going to talk about that, but really this season is the primary focus of this season, I think, is about the development of your young quarterback that you drafted 4th overall last year. That's what matters the most to me. And I just don't view it as like if you play Joe Flacco, you win 8 or 9 games, where does that get you? You have a worse draft pick. Your quarterback is still young and inexperienced. And you're kind of still mediocre. Like, what did that really do for your organization? That's kind of where I sit at it. And I think that's kind of the worst place you can be, Derek, is average to below average, no future at quarterback, and just kind of stuck in that perpetual mediocrity. And that's where the Colts were for multiple years. I mean, I don't want to have to go down through the quarterback list, Derek, but you already know where I could go with that. With all the quarterbacks the Colts trotted out there that weren't their future. I mean, Carson Wentz was the only one they truly believed could have been, but there were multiple years where the Colts just kicked the can down the road. We were clamoring for years. Please stop doing that. Please get a young quarterback. And now they have a young quarterback, and people want to go back to that. It just doesn't make any logical sense to me.
It's crazy to see how many people that were saying, enough with the old quarterbacks. Go get yourself a young guy and try to see what they got. Now you have that, and they've already given up on him when he has only played 6 games and are like, no, put the veteran back in, put the old guy back in. Like, it's obviously not everyone, but this fan base, a lot of it is just blows my mind how you can flip-flop back and forth like this. Like, how do you even deal with your daily lives if you can just continuously be this indecisive about what you want, right? Like you said, Joe Flacco in the 2 games that he's played in, right, against the Steelers and against the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? In that Steelers game, came in that late first quarter, threw 66% completion percentage for 186 yards, a couple TDs. We barely hung on against the Steelers. And then obviously in this game where he starts, like you said, he has a great game. Great game. I mean, you almost couldn't get better than Joe Flacco did in that game. And we still lost. Cody, I want to tell you this. The Colts have scored 30 plus points in 8 games since the start of the 2023 season. And we have only won 4 of those games. Again, another subtle shot at the defense over there for the Indianapolis Colts. Because again, goes to show you, most other teams, when they score 30 plus points, 75 to 80% of the time they're going to win. Only 50% of the time does that actually work for the Indianapolis Colts, because our defense is so bad, regardless of who's scoring 30 points, we just never seem to actually be able to know how to finish games. But, like you said, what was this season about? The development of Anthony Richardson. That was the point of this season. Like you said, the Colts didn't really bring anyone in. They just kept most of their guys to try to have some balance for the offense and someone for the defense, and just to have continuity with Anthony Richardson. Now, I think we all can sit here and agree that Ballard should have done more, because you should have brought more weapons in, or both offensively and defensively, to try and mitigate, what's going on with this team, and, try to make it to where Anthony Richardson doesn't have to, where Anthony Richardson doesn't have to carry the team all by himself. And, he's kind of had to at times, because, wide receivers, when he's been throwing him the football, certainly ain't been doing him any favors. But let's just say, for all intents and purposes, we did give JoeFlaco the keys to the team, like Darius had suggested. Okay, so you're 2-3. How many games do you think the Colts need to win, Cody, in order to be able to make the playoffs? At least 9?
9, 10, yeah.
Okay, so you have to win 7 of the last 12 games to be able to do that. Now, with the way this defense is playing, do you actually think this team can win more games than they lose with JoeFlaco at quarterback still? They just lost to the quote-unquote worst team in football this last Sunday. And you gave up 500 yards doing it. And you threw for 350 yards with him and still couldn't win. And then on top of it, some of the teams that we said are not looking as good this year, they're actually looking pretty darn good, man. I mean, look, the next 2 games, you're going to face the Titans, who are definitely not good. The Dolphins, who are clearly not good right now. But do we really think that the Colts can hold back Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle still, even despite the fact that their quarterback is trash? I don't think so. And this team ain't going to compete against the Texans right now as it is. They're not going to compete against the Vikings the way that it is. They're not going to compete against the Bills the way that they are. I mean, heck, they might not even beat the Jets. And the Jets are bad right now. They're certainly not going to beat the Lions. And the Denver Broncos game isn't looking as easy anymore. The Denver Broncos actually look like they're putting it together a little bit with Bo Nix over there. And then again, you got to face the Jaguars at the end of the year. I don't think we're going to win that one either. I mean, there's a legit chance that the Indianapolis Colts could, finish the season with maybe only 1 or 2 wins in the actual division itself. I mean, that's how bad we are right now. So, at best case scenario, Cody, you win 10 games somehow, some way, and you make it to the playoffs. Okay, but you're not going to win the division. So you're going to be either 5th, 6th, or 7th seed. And do we really want to sit here and suggest that a JoeFlaco-led team can beat the likes of Kansas City, beat the likes of Baltimore, beat the likes of Houston, beat the likes of, what are the other teams that I haven't mentioned that's probably going to win their division? Like, no, we're not. So again, it goes back to it. What is the point of starting a 39-year-old quarterback if ultimately you know this team's not good enough to go to the big dance? The whole point of the year was to get Anthony Richardson the reps, was to make sure that he got better as the season went on. And the only way that this quarterback is going to get better is if you get in the reps. And if he doesn't get the reps, this whole season was completely for nothing. And you proved the point. You have given up on Anthony Richardson. I don't know if Darius had thought about that with this, but that just showed Anthony Richardson, we clearly see you're not ready. And we're just going to go ride with this guy. Even though we know this isn't going to take us anywhere, we're going to ride the hot hand because we don't like the way you play quarterback. That's the message you're putting across to this 22-year-old kid who's never had a chance. He's never had a chance. And then I see people on Twitter that are like, oh, look at what Jordan Love has done with Aaron Rodgers. Look at what Patrick Mahomes did with the Kansas City Chiefs. Both of those guys were behind really good quarterbacks. One of them a future Hall of Fame quarterback. And their teams were already playoff contention teams, and they were competing for Super Bowls. Both of them. Kansas City was always in the playoffs before Mahomes got in there. Always. And the Green Bay Packers, they were competing for Super Bowls every year. So, of course, those guys had to sit. But on top of it, those two guys, they were 3-year starters in college. They played games in college. They got the coaching experience. They got the game experience. They got things that Anthony Richardson never got as a quarterback in college. He played 1 year. And never had a real good quarterback coach coaching him along the way, and never had a chance to actually have multiple seasons where he was able to hone in on his skills. He is as raw gets. And we're still trying to tell him that you would be better off sitting with a clipboard in your hand or an iPad in your hand, watching mental reps and throwing in practices rather than going out on the field and actually getting game reps live. I mean, seriously, or do we really think that is going to help Anthony Richardson? Do you really think that's what Anthony Richardson needs? No, he needs real game time reps to get used to throwing the football and getting better with himself rather than just throwing in practice all year long.
Well, guys, with football season finally getting back into the swing of things, first off, we rejoice, but also, guys, when it comes to Prize Picks, this is going to be a great way for you guys, especially, to check out some of the stuff that Prize Picks has.
You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You heard me right. Only 4 correct picks. You can win 100 times your money, guys, on Prize Picks. Be sure to sign up today and get $50 off instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So, for example, if you think that Michael Pittman Jr. is going to have, over 80 yards this next week, or do you think Jonathan Taylor is going to have another performance of 80-plus yards rushing, you might be sitting pretty good with where you feel like the Colts are right now. Like, for example, I know one of the bets last week, Jonathan Taylor against the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Pittsburgh came in with a really good run defense, and so the over-under was 74.5 rushing yards. And obviously, Jonathan Taylor, if you would have taken the over there, you would have won in that department. And the odds weren't the greatest for Jonathan Taylor because, like I mentioned, that Pittsburgh defense. But to his credit, Jonathan Taylor definitely is a player you can never discount, and definitely a player you definitely want to always essentially take the over on because he's just that good of a football player for the Indianapolis Colts. And so you can do all that
on Prize Picks today. Or, for example, with Michael Pittman Jr., when you're talking about him, I mean, he hasn't done a whole lot to start the season for the Indianapolis Colts. But the thing that he did do well when it came, to week number 4 was, he had his first 100-yard game. And if you would have bet that Michael Pittman Jr. potentially did his over, which really wasn't a whole lot in this performance. I mean, really, when you look at it, his over under was 45 and a half receiving yards. And obviously you smashed the over there. He had 113. So those are just a couple examples of what you can do on Prize Picks today. So if you're looking specifically for the Colts stuff, that's definitely something you guys should check out. But if you're looking for, like me, more NFL stuff, there's all sorts of stats and stuff that you can check out and make your picks. And there's definitely guys that are very consistent, like Jonathan Taylor against the Houston Texans, that you really feel like you can probably feel pretty good about overall, right? And there's some other ones where you're like, I don't know if I would take the over on that. I don't know if I would pick them to hit that margin, right? So, guys, be sure to go check out all that stuff on Prize Picks. It's only a couple examples. There's all the different odds that you could hope for when it comes to that for Prize Picks. So I encourage you guys to go check that out, but definitely excited for this season. And hopefully you guys will be following along with us and everything with Prize Picks and what they do. So be sure to download the app today. Use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Like I said, guys, it's a great way to continue to stay in with week-to-week life of the NFL, specifically with your favorite team, the Indianapolis Colts. So be sure to do that. Be sure to check out Prize Picks. And remember, Prize Picks, run your game.
And he had the mental reps last year. He's had, with that injury, he missed that majority of the season. So he had to sit back and get the mental reps, right? So, like you said, like what benefit is it going to do him to do that again? Obviously, there's always some benefit, but again, it's not even close to actually being on the field, experiencing it. Derek, it's funny. I've seen people say everybody wants a developmental quarterback until the development happens. And that's where we are. The development's happening. Right. And I understand, like, Anthony Richardson is nowhere near where he needs to be. Like, there are some routine things he should be doing that he's not. But again, Derek, like he said, like, we haven't even given him a full season. Now, we'll say this. He's got to stay healthy. He cannot continue to miss games. But, Derek, we just got to give him this season at the minimum, bare minimum. I mean, maybe even next year. Right. Like, we just got to continue to see, is this guy the future? What's the point of spending the 4th overall pick if you're not going to give him a chance to prove himself? That's kind of where I sit with it. So, I mean, you've seen this with different quarterbacks. And, people like to point to Josh Allen. But, Derek, even with Josh Allen, like, he was nowhere near the amount of rawness that Anthony Richardson is. Like, he was one of the most, notoriously, Anthony Richardson was the, like, rawest quarterback that we've seen taken that high probably ever, honestly. But we knew the potential was probably some of the biggest we've ever seen also. So that's kind of what you get with him. So why are we acting surprised that an inexperienced kid is showing signs that he needs time to develop and, make mistakes, learn from mistakes, and do those things, And that's kind of where I sit with it. And so, I know it's so easy to be impatient, want to win now, but again, Derek, you just need to have him really just play the season out and just go from there. And even next year, just truly, don't just throw it away. AR he hasn't played great football this year, for the most part. I'll admit that. He's had a lot of issues this year. But again, Derek, he's shown you enough positive things to make you think this kid he has something more to him. He still has a lot of problems passing the football. We can admit that. He's got a lot of problems. He may have some problems his entire career throwing the football, but you got to give him time. You can't just throw it away, 4 games into the season, into his first season, if you really think about it, like his first full season. You just can't throw that away. So I think as long as he's available, you throw him out there, you let him grow, you let him learn. Maybe it was good for him to sit back and watch JoeFlaco for a game. Maybe it was just really good for him. But again, Derek, that can't be the entirety of the season because, like you said, at the end of the day, you sit there and you still have a question at quarterback long term. I'd rather watch him play and determine he's not the guy than always sit back and wonder if he could have been if we gave him a chance.
100%. Quit giving up on these quarterbacks, and I applaud Shane Steichen for sticking to it and saying there is no controversy. When Anthony Richardson is healthy, he is our quarterback, and Joe Flacco is the backup. That is how it should be, and I'm glad that Shane Steichen is smart enough to understand that. Again, I would rather this team win 6-7 games this year, maybe, with Anthony Richardson getting the reps and getting the experience, than Joe Flacco winning us 7-8 games this year, not improving our draft position, by the way, just sending us higher up the draft boards and not getting the reps that this quarterback needs, right? Like we said, there's no point in winning games with a 40-year-old quarterback if ultimately it's not going to lead anywhere. Joe Flacco might retire after this year, and what did it do you? Oh, we won 10 games. Oh, we made the playoffs. Okay, great. Your quarterback that's on the roster now still didn't get the reps that he needed to try to learn to be successful, and all you did was bump you up higher in the draft boards, and now you get a worse pick. You get a worse draft pick position because of it. Oh, you really did a great job there, man. Like, again, I would rather us get the reps for Anthony Richardson, regardless of how bad it is at times, still go out there and see him get the reps, than see this team struggle with Joe Flacco as a quarterback still. Because like you said, Joe Flacco being out there isn't fixing this defense. It isn't fixing this defense, and it certainly ain't fixing the incompetency of the offense still. Yeah, Joe Flacco has definitely been a lot more accurate, a lot more consistent. But Cody, I mean, has it really translated to better wins and better offensive gameplay? Like, yeah, from a numbers perspective, sure. But again, we barely beat the Steelers, and we didn't beat Jacksonville even with Joe Flacco maybe having the best game a Colts quarterback's going to have all year. So what did it mean? What did it mean for Joe Flacco to go out there and complete 70% of his passes for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns if ultimately it doesn't result in wins? I mean, that's the spot that we're at right now. And especially coming up here in a few weeks, you're going to face a gauntlet. You're going to face a gauntlet of teams. And I guarantee you, Joe Flacco ain't going to be the reason that we win those games. It's either going to be Anthony Richardson or it's going to be nothing. Joe Flacco wouldn't have a better chance to make that team win against the Vikings, the Bills, and the Texans, or the Lions, or the Jets than Anthony Richardson would. I'm telling you that right now.
To me, it's all about really looking at the future. I mean, Derek, like you said, like you could have 10 wins, you can boast about that and all that stuff, but I kind of look at it, and I know it's not a complete apples-to-apples comparison, but I'm sure you'll be able to remember this. Do you remember when Andrew Luck was clearly hurt back in 2016, I believe it was? Ryan Grigson and Chuck Pagano's stupid bad word, they trotted out Andrew Luck week 17 in a meaningless game, and they won. But you look at it now, Derek, and you say that was clearly not the best thing for the franchise in the years to come. They were out of playoff contention. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. Now, again, I'm not saying that like it's not completely the same, but I think you understand what I'm saying. It's kind of similar. It would be similar with Joe Flacco in the sense of, look, yes, we won 10 games. Yes, we did this stuff, but at the end of the day, what did that get me? And what did this do? It almost hindered rather than helped. Even though in the short term, it definitely helped. In the long term, it ultimately hindered the franchise. It hindered the franchise. That's what you'd be doing with not playing Anthony Richardson. You'd be hindering this franchise, setting it back for even longer because you're not developing your young quarterback. That's kind of how I look at it. It's like, why in the world are you boasting in meaningless stats? Why does that matter to you that much? Why does record matter at that point? If it's really not, it's really in some ways, Derek, it really is just kind of like I don't even know the term. It's false almost. It's like this false optimism. And I just don't agree with that. Like, I would rather, like you said, win 6 games or whatever, but be set up for the future and have your young quarterback growing and learning than winning 10 games with a 40-year-old quarterback. Because you at least know where your future is. You at least know you're investing in your future. And I think that is so much more important than winning 10 games this year with Joe Flacco. I just think it is.
Yeah, I'm just sick and tired of having this argument, man, because it just doesn't make any sense for the Indianapolis Colts franchise just to go with Joe Flacco. It doesn't. It really doesn't. It means that your 2023 draft pick that you had, knowing what you knew about him before you came in, it means that entire pick was completely worthless. That's really what you're saying. And yep. I am shocked at the amount of people that actually agree with it, or anyone that would even entertain the idea of putting it out there on social media. It just doesn't, I just don't understand it. Again, I'm not, for those that have that opinion, I just don't, I can't go along with it. I can't. And I'm sure a few people that have that opinion, they're obviously somewhat smart people, but like that argument, that whole take, I just can't take it. I can't do it.
Can't agree. Nope.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Again, leave us your thoughts in the comments below. Are you on the board of Joe Flacco taking over for the year? Or are you like us, where you're saying that it's Anthony Richardson or blow the whole thing up at this point? So that'll do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.